Turns out, the best Resident Evil games aren't always the ones that scared me the most, and that took me a while to admit. I'm Alice, and I went through everything from Nanchen classics to the newest release, chasing what actually holds up on PS5. Let's get into the full list. Starting things off at number 1 is Resident Evil 4 Remake. And honestly, this thing might be the most complete horror action game Capcom has ever shipped. The village opening still gives me chills every single time I replay it. The parry system makes combat feel tense instead of button mashing, and Leon's writing is somehow both funnier and darker than the original. Before we get further into the list, quick favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, and drop your favorite Resident Evil game in the comments. I read all of them. Everything from Ashley escort sections to the merchant's shop just feels tighter here, and honestly, I think this remake might age even better than RE2's. Number 2 brings us to Resident Evil Village, a game that somehow blends gothic castle horror with full-blown action set pieces without ever feeling messy. Lady Dimitrescu got all the internet attention, sure, but the werewolf village and the dollhouse sections genuinely creeped me out more. Ethan's story wraps up in a way that actually respects RE7 fans. The pacing shifts constantly, which keeps things fresh across a full playthrough. It's easily one of the most replayable entries, and I still boot it up just to mess around in Mercenaries mode sometimes. Sliding into number 3, Resident Evil 2 Remake basically reinvented what a survival horror remake could look like back in 2019. Raccoon City Police Station feels like its own character, dense, claustrophobic, and genuinely dangerous once Mr. X starts stomping around. Claire and Leon's campaigns give you real reasons to replay it twice. The inventory management forces smart decisions instead of hoarding everything. I still think this might be the scariest game on this entire list. No exaggeration, the tension rarely lets up for long stretches. At number 4, we've got Resident Evil Requiem, the newest mainline entry, and honestly, a pretty bold swing for the series. Grace Ashcraft's investigative gameplay feels slower and more atmospheric, while Leon's sections lean into the intensity longtime fans expect. The environments push RE engine visuals to a new level. Some of the lighting work genuinely impressed me. Dual protagonists keep the pacing varied instead of repetitive. It's early days for community consensus, but I already think this belongs near the top of the franchise. Landing at number 5 is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, the game that dragged this series back into pure horror territory after years of action-leaning entries. The Baker family house is one of the most unsettling locations in gaming, full stop. First-person perspective makes every encounter feel personal and vulnerable. Jack Baker chasing you through narrow hallways still stresses me out on replays. This one earned back a lot of trust from horror purists, and I respect Capcom for taking that risk. Number 6 is Resident Evil 3 Remake, a shorter but faster-paced companion to RE2 that trades some length for relentless momentum. Nemesis chasing you across the city creates constant pressure that never really lets you settle in. Jill's dodge mechanic makes combat feel more mobile than most entries. Some fans wanted more content added compared to the original, and honestly, that criticism is fair. Still, the atmosphere and set pieces make it worth playing, even if it's over quicker than you'd expect. At number 7 sits Resident Evil 5, a game that leaned hard into co-op action alongside Chris Redfield and Sheva in Africa. It's less scary than earlier entries, more shooting gallery than survival horror, honestly, but the boss fights are genuinely memorable. Playing this with a friend completely changes the experience for the better. Mercenaries mode alone gave this game insane replay value for years. It's a divisive entry among purists, but I still had a great time revisiting it. Number 8 brings Resident Evil 6, probably the most polarizing mainline game in the entire franchise among longtime fans. 4 campaigns intertwine across different characters and tones, which sounds cool but stretches the pacing pretty thin at times. Leon's story leans horror, while Chris and Jake go full action movie. It's overstuffed, sure, but there's a lot of content packed in here. I actually think it gets unfairly hated on more than it deserves these days. At number 9, Resident Evil Revelations 2 quietly became one of the better episodic horror experiments Capcom has released. Claire and Barry both get their own storylines, split across 4 episodes with genuinely creepy environments. Co-op support companions add a puzzle element most RE games skip entirely. It never got the marketing push of mainline entries, which feels like a shame, honestly. This one deserves way more attention than it usually gets from casual fans. Number 10 is the original Resident Evil Revelations, set almost entirely aboard a mysterious ghost ship called the Queen Zenobia. Jill and Parker investigating flooded corridors creates a tight, claustrophobic horror loop that holds up surprisingly well. The Genesis scanner adds a light exploration mechanic between combat sections. It bridges the gap between RE4 and RE5 tonally in an interesting way. Underrated pick here, and one I think deserves a proper modern remake, honestly. At number 11, Resident Evil HD Remaster brings the original mansion incident back with sharper visuals and fixed camera angles intact. Spencer Mansion remains one of gaming's most iconic horror settings, full of puzzles and backtracking tension. Limited saves and inventory space force genuinely careful decision-making throughout. It's old school in every sense, and some players will bounce off the pacing. Still, this is essential history for understanding where the entire franchise even started. Number 12 is Resident Evil 0 HD Remaster, a prequel following Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen through a stranded train and mansion. The partner swap mechanic lets you control both characters, which changes puzzle solving in a pretty unique way. No item boxes here means inventory management gets brutally strict fast. It's slower paced than most entries on this list, not everyone's favorite, but the atmosphere and setting design still hold up nicely today. At number 13, Resident Evil 4 Ultimate HD Edition preserves the original 2005 masterpiece that basically redefined third-person action horror forever. The Ganados Village ambush remains one of gaming's most iconic opening sequences ever made. Leon's dry humor and the merchant's shop create a tone unlike anything before it. This version runs smoother on modern hardware than you'd expect. If you've only played the remake, the original still absolutely deserves a full playthrough. Number 14 brings us Resident Evil Code Veronica X HD, a criminally underrated chapter following Claire Redfield trapped on a remote prison island. Alfred Ashford's unsettling presence makes this one of the creepiest antagonists in the series. Full 3D environments were a big technical leap at the time of release. It connects Umbrella lore threads that later games barely touch again. Longtime fans consider this a hidden gem, and honestly, I completely agree with that take. At number 15, Resident Evil Village Gold Edition bundles the base game with the Winter's expansion, including Shadows of Rose and extra Mercenaries content. Rose's story, set years after Village, adds a genuinely emotional new layer to Ethan's ending. The Trauma Pack VR content is a nice bonus if you own a PSVR 2 headset. It's a solid way to experience everything Village offers in one package. Great value pick if you missed the original launch entirely. Number 16 is Resident Evil 4 Remake Separate Ways, DLC that finally lets you play through Ada Wong's parallel storyline properly. New sections and a grappling hook mechanic make her campaign feel distinct from Leon's playthrough. It fills in story gaps that the base remake glossed over quickly. Fans of the original PS2 version's bonus mode will appreciate this expanded take. Short but genuinely satisfying, and worth it if you loved the main campaign. At number 17, Resident Evil 7 End of Zoe wraps up the Baker family saga through Joe Baker's hand-to-hand combat-focused epilogue. No guns here, just pure physical survival against mutated threats in the swamp. It's a tonal shift that some fans loved and others found jarring, honestly. The Bayou setting looks fantastic in first person. A solid closer for anyone who wanted more closure after RE7's abrupt main ending. Number 18 is Resident Evil 7, Not a Hero, following Chris Redfield hunting down Lucas Baker after the main story concludes. It's more combat-focused than RE7's base game, which some purists weren't thrilled about. Lucas's trap-filled sections are genuinely clever puzzle design, though. This DLC ties Chris back into the wider Resident Evil timeline nicely, free with certain additions and honestly worth playing just for the closure alone. At number 19, Resident Evil 5 Lost in Nightmares drops Chris and Jill back into a classic gothic mansion setting for a nostalgic detour. It intentionally echoes the original game's slower, puzzle-heavy pacing instead of RE5's usual action. Fixed camera angle throwbacks are a fun surprise for longtime series fans. It's short, maybe an hour, but dense with atmosphere throughout. Genuinely one of the better pieces of DLC Capcom has ever produced, honestly. Number 20 is Resident Evil 5 Desperate Escape, a shorter companion piece following Jill and Josh Stone fighting to survive after the main story's climax. It's fast-paced and combat-heavy, less about exploration and more about pure survival tension. Existing RE5 owners get a nice bonus perspective on the ending here. It won't blow you away on its own. Still, a fun little epilogue if you already loved the base campaign experience. At number 21, Resident Evil Reverse is Capcom's multiplayer experiment, where iconic characters battle using classic weapons and bioweapon transformations. It launched rough, honestly. Buggy servers and a thin roster held it back early on. Turning into a tyrant mid-match is a genuinely fun power fantasy, though. It never found a huge audience compared to mainline entries. Worth trying if you want something different, just don't expect deep single-player content here. Number 22 brings Resident Evil Resistance, an asymmetric multiplayer mode bundled alongside RE3 Remake, pitting survivors against a mastermind player. It plays almost like a horror-themed take on trap-building games. Balance issues held it back from becoming a long-term hit, honestly. Character abilities are genuinely creative when the matches click well, underappreciated mode overall, and it deserved more support than Capcom ultimately gave it after launch. At number 23, Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City lets you play as an Umbrella Squad trying to erase evidence during the original outbreak. Reviews were rough at launch. Combat feels clunky compared to mainline entries, honestly. Still, the concept of playing as the bad guys is genuinely interesting on paper. Co-op runs with friends make the experience considerably more enjoyable than solo. A guilty pleasure pick, not a masterpiece, but worth trying once for curiosity. Number 24 is Resident Evil Umbrella Course, a fast-paced competitive shooter that leans hard into arcade-style team combat over horror. Longtime fans mostly rejected it for straying so far from the series' roots. Movement feels snappy though, and matches are refreshingly quick compared to typical shooters. It's not going to convert horror fans, honestly. If you enjoy quick competitive rounds with zombie enemies mixed in, it's a decent curiosity pick.